SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, and I am on location today for the Skills USA Mississippi State competition. Rhino safe and sound back in the SuperTalk Mississippi headquarters. We'll be guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Hump Day.
And a lovely one it is here at the Mississippi Trade Mart. You know, they had a fire in this building a couple of weeks ago. And you can still tell a little bit, Rhino, a little bit of the odor of a fire. We're in the side room here that is adjacent to the big open Trade Mart room, and all glass, and the air conditioning is not working, but it's not too bad. I think they're still trying to get all that restored from the fire that occurred a couple of weeks ago. But I noticed in just driving by it a couple of times over the last week, the service vehicles that were inside this building trying to clean it up and get it ready for use again, parked outside. But we're all here ready to go, buckled up, and in my view, almost, not quite, but just over the hill would be the Mississippi State Capitol. I could almost throw a stone at it from here. That's where they're down there doing what exactly, Rhino? We don't know. Not a lot. That is for sure. We're barreling towards the old sine die in the state of Mississippi. It looks like we will have a budget that we won't have to call a special session to do so, as we did last year, that the Mississippi State Legislature will work through the various bills that fund the functional areas, the agencies of government, get that to the governor's desk, and off we go. You already know by now, if you've been tuning into us, that spending is increasing by what, $265 million, I think, Rhino, is what was the final tally, as I recall, and most of that increasing spending on the Medicaid program, and I would expect that spending to continue to escalate, talking about Medicaid specifically, because it's the cost of health care continues to rise, and it's just so dang unpredictable. But that's where we are. That's the major piece of it. And then education, another major component of the increase in spending for the Mississippi State budget for 2027. It's not surprising because those two programs comprise a substantial part of the budget, a total of 65-70% of it. Education, Medicaid, next is corrections. Then we've got our principal and interest on the debt as well that comes out of our general fund. And then the litany, if you will, of the other agencies that come into play as well. All others fit in the category of on the pie of about 4.79%. But the vast majority, of course, some 55% to education, about 16% to what's called social welfare. That's primarily Medicaid. And then debt service, it comes in at 6%. Corrections also 6%. So between that's 80% right there. It's actually more than that. It's about 85% of the budget that would be consumed by education, Medicaid, debt service, corrections. That's what we spend money on here in the state of Mississippi. But it looks like we're going to get a budget. It is increasing over the prior year. And that should cause some concerns in my view, because I've asked this question. I was at the Capitol yesterday and I've asked it. I don't want to speak ahead of myself here, but I've asked for, okay, well, what's the revenue projected to look like? How in the world do you know how to appropriate without knowing how much money you expect to receive? And I kind of get blank stares. No disrespect to my legislative friends, and this is, I assume, the way it's always been done. It just seems like that somebody who projects revenue, such as the Legislative Budget Office, Department of Finance and Administration, maybe the Department of Revenue, other credible sources that are involved with the revenue function of the state, and that primarily comes in the form of sales taxes and income taxes. The two of those account for 65% of total revenue, and then you got corporate income taxes. That would be the next category at about 13%. Use tax, that's essentially sales taxes, so you'd have to throw that in with the sales tax bucket. In my view, you got a little dab of gaming revenue, some other income. You got the alcoholic beverage control tax, though I'm a little worried about that, since we're a bit behind in a bit less than full strength, shall we say, in the distribution of alcohol. That has been a problem that has received a lot of attention here over the session. But back to the original point, how in the world do they figure out how much money they have to appropriate if they don't know, somebody doesn't provide some details on the revenue projection? What am I missing here, Rhino? I just know from doing this in business, which I have quite a bit, you kind of got to start with where you think the revenue is going to come from and how much that's expected to be. And then from that point, you start talking about how much spending is going to be.
But that's in reality. That's not in politics world.
So they just start and appropriate, and then they sort of back into the revenue. It doesn't work that way. I mean, I'd love to sit down and put together a budget for a business and say, well, guys, here's how much money we're going to spend. So now that's your job. Your job is to go create this revenue without really having any idea. And that's talking about a business which is in the game, in the business of selling. That's the discipline. So that's actually more realistic. It's a little more difficult when your revenue comes from taxes, because there are a million factors that enter into that. You could certainly go out there in the private sector and sell your rears off, right, to ensure that you generate enough revenue to cover expenses. But you know what else you do in business? It doesn't look like that's working out. We got to start cutting in the middle of the year, like on any given day. And that may consist of reducing staff, reducing headcount, and reducing a number of other expenses that your business incurs. That's what you do in business, but you're tracking that on a virtually daily basis, at a minimum a monthly basis. But in government, what do you do in the middle of the year? Can we just say, I'm sorry, we don't have enough money coming in? I've never seen that happen before, and maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe this isn't even a problem. I just know that we generated a $400 million roughly surplus last year, that the difference between revenue and expenses. We got a budget that looks like it's increasing spending by about $265 million. But is revenue going to stay level, in which case we're still good to go? Is it expected to increase? Is it expected to decrease? What's the status of the revenue? And maybe that data's out there, and I just hadn't asked the right people. And that's fine as well. But maybe somebody can help me out and help us understand Well, what about the revenue? And the reason that's something we should be concerned about is because there's a myriad of factors that affect our income tax revenue, our sales tax revenue, including the macroeconomy of the United States and the macroeconomy of the world and the macroeconomy of this state. All of those are factors for sure. And then we're also chipping away at the income tax rate, which I fully support. And so is that going to translate and be offset by higher sales tax revenues because we have more money in our pocket, we're spending more? Is it attracting new businesses and really more people into the state that spend money and generate sales tax revenue? I just hope these discussions are occurring under the dome, that's all. Something else we got to get to. I talked to Senator Daniel Sparks on the phone this morning. He was on with Richard Cross as well this morning, but I talked to him about the state's potential liability because of its food stamps error rate. That a new rule passed down in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I don't think the legislature looks like they're taking any action on that. We're at the Mississippi Trade Mart for the skills competition. Brent Bean, president of Build Mississippi, is next.
Hey, this is Bob, and if you're like
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. The Element Wealth Studio has been relocated to the fabulous Mississippi Trade Mart, recovering from a little fire from an exhibition that occurred a couple of weeks ago. But, man, I tell you, they did a remarkable job getting this facility and ready to host another event, and we are pleased to report that for sure. Brent Bean, president of Build Mississippi, is now our guest here. Brent, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning. Thank y'all for coming down and seeing what all we got going on today.
Always an incredible day showcasing the talents of these youngsters that may have some interest in the construction business.
We sure hope so. You know, we've been pushing this for a few years, and, you know, excited that, you know, there's starting to be a shift in the mindset. We're noticing that across the state, that, you know, parents and grandparents, decision makers, so we call them, are realizing that, hey, forcing my kid off to college is not always the right solution for my kid. And, you know, that's the biggest thing that we try to get people to understand is, hey, you know, college is right for some people. You know, lawyers and doctors, I want them to get as much education as they can, but, you know, there's a lot of other careers out there where a young person can be extremely successful, make a great living, and work with their hands. And we just want to continue to educate everybody across the state, and then encourage our young people that are starting to make that decision, you know, that, hey, this is what I want to do. I think I want to be an HVAC technician, or I want to be an electrician. You know, we want to embrace them and encourage them, and no better way to do that than an event like today, where we've got 150 plus high school students from all across the state of Mississippi that are down here competing, from welding to carpentry, electrical. We've got masons out back, and over 25 contractors from the state of Mississippi that are on site doing a job fair and recruiting, you know, the next generation of workforce that we know we need in our state.
Well, and we hear it all the time that there tends to be a constraint of available qualified construction workers, not just in Mississippi, but across the country. And so we get these young folks trained up and interested. Hopefully they can fill those jobs and go to work. Yeah,
that's the goal. You know, the governor's putting a press release out. It seems like every other day, you know, a new manufacturer or a new business, new company is coming to our state, and there's so much booming in our economy. You know, the state's doing great right now with data centers and all this other stuff. And, Before those jobs in those data centers and those manufacturing shops are available, we need construction workers. We need people that are going to lay the infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, the electrical work, the plumbing, the HVAC. We live in Mississippi, and I can tell you somebody that's never without work is an HVAC technician.
No doubt about it. That's exactly right. And I'm seeing reports as well. You were talking about the data center construction in West Texas. You're probably aware that there's such competition for the construction workers, in particular electricians. They're literally poaching these electricians from the job sites. There's such high demand, and they need them, and they need their project to get complete so they can start producing revenue, and they're willing to pay a premium for these workers. I'm hearing electricians going for $250,000, $275,000 a year.
Absolutely. That's one of these things that we're trying to educate these young people and their parents again. It is in such demand that these contractors already were paying good wages and other benefits, health, 401k, things of that nature, but it's gotten so competitive that the amount of money that these young people are able to make coming straight out of high school or straight out of our community college programs, it's fascinating. We've got companies that we're running 6-8 week short-term classes, and as fast as we can spit people out, they're starting these people off at $20 to $25 an hour just off of a 6-week class.
That's awesome.
Just entry level, just basic knowledge, because they need them so bad in the field. And one of the things that we tell these young people, we need you real bad right now, but look, if you learn this skill, you'll never do without work. We're always going to need electricians and HVAC techs and just tradesmen across the field.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that there's any slowdown going on there. And we should also point out that those industries and those trades have evolved significantly. They actually require a great deal of technical expertise and just mental acuity. Right?
Absolutely. Just these students that are out here today, when they show up this morning for their competition, they come in and their materials are set for them, and they're given a set of blueprints that just like you would on a commercial job site, and they have to be able to read those plans. But like you said, there's so much advancement in the technology field over the last 5 to 10 years that these kids today with their iPads and computers and stuff, they can pick up on it so much faster than the older generation.
They're comfortable with that. They're accustomed to it.
Absolutely. You go on a job site nowadays and you don't see superintendents walking around with a notepad and a pencil and paper. They all got iPads. And that's what they're working with. That's what they're pulling up plans and doing change orders and stuff with. So, we were actually just talking to a gentleman a while ago that's going to be helping judge a drone competition that's downtown today, but multiple contractors and architects are using drones now, going through buildings and doing checklists and punch lists with drones. There's a vast array of opportunity, different skills, different jobs that are available in the construction industry outside of just a hammer and nail.
Yeah. No doubt about it. So tell us exactly what this event's all about, Brent.
So this event, we've got high school students and community college students that competed at regionals over the last couple of months to qualify to come down here to state. And the winner of each competition will be qualifying to go to the national competition in Atlanta later on this summer. And on top of that, one of the unique things that we're able to do here down at the Trade Mart today and yesterday when we first kicked off is all of our project managers and judges are local contractors.
Right.
It's project managers and superintendents and owners of companies. So while these kids are competing to, earn the opportunity to go to nationals, they're also basically doing hands-on job interviews for companies right now, because we just had a job offer come out for a carpentry student a while ago when a couple of judges were watching, and they said, "This kid's a senior?" "Yeah, this guy's a senior." And I want to offer him a job before he leaves here
Wow.
today. When he graduates, we want him to come to work for us. So, that's the kind of opportunities that are happening down here today.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. So tell us about the Skills USA organization.
Yeah,
What
so
does that do?
Skills USA, it's a state organization just like, FFA and other entities in our high schools and community colleges. But it's an organization that, really supports workforce. It wants to prepare those kids, to go to work, preparing them for job interviews, boosting their resume, learning how to build a resume, learning skills that will be valuable to them far beyond school, that when they get ready to enter the workforce, they're truly prepared and got a leg up on other students. And Skills USA, both in the high school and community college level, is just a strong supporter of preparing our kids for whatever their calling is, whether it's going into beauty and salon or culinary, or where we're focused in the construction industry, HVAC technicians or plumbers or what have you. Just really grabbing those kids and supporting them and building them to be as successful as they possibly can.
Yeah. Well, that program's working out pretty well. So, but you've got some competition going on as well, right, as part of this program, as part of this event. How does that work exactly? How do you compete, for example, if in the various trades?
Yeah, and that's one of the great things that Skills USA promotes. They understand that competition makes everything better. Whether it's, we see that in athletics all the time, that those students compete, and that's how they get better. So it's something that the Skills USA organization and Build Mississippi has embraced, that these students are out here truly, competing hands-on. We've got high school students going head-to-head, building greenhouse sheds out here today. We've got welding. We had welding fab teams yesterday afternoon that literally they were just given a stack of steel.
Yeah.
And they're cutting pipe and building shooting targets and just really showing off the skills
cool.
they need that's going to be applicable to them when they go to work.
Really cool. We've been talking to Brett Beam, president of Build Mississippi. We're down here for the Skills USA Mississippi State competition. It's at the Mississippi Trade Mart. Appreciate you coming on, Brent.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Man. Yep. We're coming right back. The Element Wealth Studio at the Mississippi Trade Mart.
From theseabrook.com.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
This is a story about Billy Joe and Bobby Sue, two young lovers with nothing.
Welcome back, everyone. Middays from the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Skills USA Mississippi State competition. Also, we're going to be next Thursday, April 9th, we're going to be live from the South Highland Colony Parkway in Ridgeland, Mississippi. The Madison County Economic Development Authority will be discussing how they recruit and retain industries in the area, helping create thousands of jobs and billions in investment. Sports Talk Mississippi, they're going to be live at Scruggs Farm Lawn and Garden in Saltillo next Wednesday for their Drive Green Spring Sales event. Check out their green savings on John Deere zero-turn mowers with 0% for 36 months, Gators with 1.9% for 39 months, compact tractors with 0% for 72 months, and other great deals. The C Spire text line, it's 601-879-4395. Don't forget to go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. The markets, once again, the bulls in charge, all indexes in the green after an incredible day yesterday, and that's because the president came out and said, well, I think we are prepared to exit the region and end the war essentially without reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And that was somewhat of a pleasant surprise to investors, just signaling maybe this conflict will be over sooner rather than later. Now, the president is scheduled to address the nation tonight at prime time, and that should be something. He'll talk about, I'm sure, the war and his vision for how this thing gets closed out. And CNN, of course, Rhino, I always love the headlines that of these major news stories, the difference between the media outlets based on, shall we say, their political ideology or their political leaning. In the case of CNN, Trump might end his war, but the rest of the world may pay the price. Oh, my gosh. So the president has also said that Tehran, this just happened this morning, is asking for a ceasefire. But Iran rejects that notion. Of course they would, right? You always talk about it, Rhino, even though Iran, not technically a communist nation, it's still an authoritarian regime, and they operate in the same vein, which is we got to save face. Isn't that what you say all the time? It's more important to save face than to actually accomplish anything here, or more importantly, to tell the truth. If lying saves face, well, that's perfectly acceptable. So that's where we are with respect to the situation in Iran. There's also some reports, you've seen this, Rhino, that some of the ships are actually being allowed to pass through the regime, allowing that. And the president, of course, threatening that if they don't act right, he could play more shoot 'em up and get more aggressive with our military. But right now, it sounds like there's something going on behind the scenes. And he shared with his aides he's willing to end the war without reopening the strait. And the aides then, I guess, were permitted to share that with various media outlets. So I'm looking at one of those reports right now in the Wall Street Journal. He says to our European allies, he says, build up some delayed courage, go to the strait and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. Bravo, Mr. President. I'm with you. We got pretty fired up about that yesterday, as you know, with respect to our European allies really not shouldering their share. Talk about paying your fair share. How about pay your fair share to defend your nation and the world in general? And the U.S. has been the world's policeman in that respect. And we have spent an enormous amount of our money in ensuring that our military honestly is deployed around the planet to keep it intact. It's time for you to step up, Europe. I think the president is spot on in that respect. So let's see here what we got. No, the story that Rhino shared with me after the show yesterday, and now that's gone viral, has it not, Rhino? And that concerns former Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. We've learned a little bit about her husband, have we not, in the last couple of days? A cross-dressing husband, it turns out. That's just crazy. It's unbelievable. I was never on board with this appointment. I just always felt like that. I don't know about that one. And then now this doesn't necessarily mean she's not qualified just because she has a cross-dressing husband to serve in that role. It's just weird, and it just always felt like something was missing. And so there we go. That's where we are. Also here at home, we talked some yesterday about the SHIELD Act, that the legislation that's somewhat of a mirror of the SAVE Act at the federal level, just simply imposing some additional procedures to ensure that those who register to vote, apply to register to vote in the state of Mississippi, are vetted somewhat against federal databases, specifically the federal SAVE database, and that is the Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements database. It's really just designed to ensure that only American citizens are approved for various federal welfare programs. Literally, specifically, that's what it was designed for. And it just maintains a big database in the sky, if you will, of citizenship status. And so under this legislation, one who registers to vote in Mississippi would have to prove they're a citizen, but not until, just wanted to point this out, you got to provide basic identification information to register, and then that information at the county level by the circuit clerks, by the registrars, would be entered in the federal SAVE database. And if it should flag those individuals with some indication that they potentially are not an American citizen, then they're simply notified. Their application is placed in a pending status. They're notified, and they come in with birth certificate, marriage certificate, if there's a change in name, passport, to prove their citizenship. People are going crazy about this. You'd have thought we're asking them to run 100 miles. Or do something else, jump over the Grand Canyon. I mean, just something that's beyond human ability. And so there's an article, an opinion piece I caught yesterday in the Clarion Ledger here locally in the central Mississippi area, entitled, "I've voted my whole life. Why is Mississippi making it harder now?" And it's another situation where I feel like they're implying in the article that you're going to have to prove your citizenship at the precinct to vote. That is absolutely not true. This is a female, and this person is complaining about the fact that their birth certificate and their current identification documents do not have the same name on them, same last name, that they assumed their spouse's name upon marriage. And now this person's already registered, and so they shouldn't have any problem. But someone who's applying to register to vote for the first time, if they're married and their birth certificate name, their name at birth, of course, their primary name has been changed, and now they have their maiden name, so now they have a name that they've assumed from their spouse, and so there's a difference. There's a distinction, and they don't match. Okay, so you bring your marriage certificate in to prove who you are, because that's going to have your maiden name on it, and it's going to show, yeah, this person got married, and that's pretty simple. But man, they're going crazy over that. And so I did ask, by the way, Senator Jeremy England this morning. He was kind enough to engage in a text exchange this morning about, hey, could electronic documents suffice for this purpose? And he said he wasn't sure. He knows that photocopies can. He's still looking into this, but it seems to me like almost everybody in the country, if not everybody in the country, has access to the internet with an electronic device. It's pretty simple to obtain those documents. I know they're all griping about the $15 or whatever it costs. But then at that point, you could print them out. You could go to the library if you need to be to print them out. I'm asking, can you just show them on your phone? We're going to take a break right now. Brianna Poole, People and Culture Manager at Key Constructors, is next.
The Huntington's disease.
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
It's Middays from the Element Well studio, relocated to the Mississippi Trade Mart today for the Build Mississippi Skills USA Mississippi State Competition. It's our pleasure to welcome now Brianna Poole, People and Culture Manager with Key Constructions. Brianna, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so tell us exactly what you do in your role there as the People and Culture Manager at Key.
So my mission is to make the employee experience the best it can be, and also connect with the public and just keep a connection from the office to the field.
Okay.
We always want to give all the glory back to all of our field guys, because they're the ones that making it happen, you know.
Gotcha. Sure, absolutely. So you sort of serve as a liaison then, I guess, to some extent, from the corporate office to the folks in the field.
I'm the bridge. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. That's a good way to put it. And I assume that most of the time they just report directly to the job site, right? They don't come into the office.
Correct.
But they need to keep up with what's going on.
Yeah, and whenever we hire people, I'm over like all the hiring and just kind of bringing them into the office and making sure that they have a good experience, and we just want them to be successful when they get out to the field.
Totally. So what do you think about this Skills USA competition? You guys playing a role in this today?
Yes, we have a big booth set up, and I have about 5 guys and girls from out in the field, and they're helping me connect with the public, and it's been really good.
Yeah.
I look forward to the event every year.
Yeah, well, these youngsters are impressive with their skills. That's for sure.
They are.
And they love to come in and showcase them. And I know some employers I've talked to in past shows that we've been here for have actually hired right on the spot, on the trade show floor there.
Yeah, so we have met so many students today, and we're really looking forward to when the competitors are coming over there to kind of walk around. But I mean, I'm looking to hire a few today and just keep the connections going, and just getting to talk to people face to face. I love that versus just instead of just doing a phone call. So,
what's the job market look like right now in the construction industry, and specifically in you guys there? Tell them what Key does.
So we build bridges and we do dirt work all over Mississippi, and then we have a new job in West Memphis, Arkansas, and I've been doing a lot of hiring recently. We hire laborers, welders, carpenters, equipment operators. I mean, we have crane operators. Main thing whenever I'm recruiting, I want people to know that, like, we don't want y'all to feel stuck at the company. If you're proving yourself, you're doing everything that you need to do, you know, we're going to see that. People are going to talk. They're going to talk about if you're doing really good, showing up early, just putting in that extra effort to show us that you want to grow. And once you do that, you know, probably about 6 months to a year after being with us, I will do everything I can to help and send people to classes. I just sent a guy last week to a CDL class. We're going to pay for that for him and just kind of invest in people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really an exciting event, and we like it.
Well, when you invest in people like that, they tend to be more loyal to the company. That's as important as just the wages themselves, right?
And too, like, I do a lot of employee check-ins, and I've had a lot of seasoned guys, you know, tell me that they don't feel like a number at the company. And that's very important to us, because we want to have a good culture. You know, we want it to be family-based. We want everybody to feel like they can grow. We want them to look forward to coming to work. So it's a good place to work. Yep.
So construction industry in general is doing pretty well from what I can tell. Not only in the state, but in the whole country.
Yeah, and everything's booming, and we're growing so much, and we have such an awesome team, like out in the field and in the office, just doing everything they can to, you know, make Key grow and expand. And it's really exciting to think about, you know, where we will be in the next 3 to 5 years. So. And
it's like all industries, it's being affected in a positive way by just a myriad of new technology and innovation.
Right, and just making sure that people know that, like, they have an opportunity at Key. We don't want anybody to feel stuck, and just, you know, just after time, and, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. That's what I tell people all the time. You know, just prove yourself, and we'll do everything we can. And as the company grows, we want you to grow with it.
So you try to establish career paths for individuals and make sure that they don't just become permanently fixed in one particular job.
And that's the thing, not everybody's going to be a superintendent, not everybody's going to be a foreman, but there's lead man roles, there's, heavy equipment operator, we have crane operators. So just trying to see where people can fit in with their abilities and, what we have available, and just figuring out ways we can guide them the best way we can.
I understand. Sounds like you guys got it going on.
We do got it going on, and it's exciting.
I see your boss over there, too.
I know,
right?
he's making me nervous.
You did great. Appreciate it, Brianna. Thanks for coming on. Yep. Brianna Poole, People and Culture Manager at Key Constructors, has been our guest on Middays. We're live at the Mississippi Trade Mart. That's where we have relocated the Element Wealth Studio today for the Build Mississippi Skills USA Mississippi State Competition. On the other side of Fox News and SuperTalk News, it's the Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce, Commissioner Andy Gibson. Stay with us.
Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 2 of Middays. Today, the Element Wealth Studio has been relocated to the fabulous Mississippi Trade Mart. We're here for the Build Mississippi Skills USA Mississippi State Competition on this
Hump Day.
It's our great pleasure to welcome now Andy Gibson. He, of course, is the Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. Commissioner Gibson, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Gerard, thank you for being here. Thanks for having me, and welcome. We're glad to be back with you.
So let's talk first about the little incident we had here in the Trade Mart. That's, of course, under your purview as the Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce.
Yeah.
The first thing I'll point out is what a rapid recovery effort to get this thing back up and running and in shape to host this event.
Yeah.
Well, tell us what happened there.
Yeah, we, of course, during spring market back into March, we've always hosted that show, and it's a great show, and we look forward to having it back. But there was a fire, which is still being investigated as to why it started in a particular vendor's booth, smoked up the entire building, destroyed a lot of product of those other vendors. And but in our situation here, we had to get this building up and operational again. So you can probably smell maybe a whiff of smoke here and there because
still a little odor.
We got it open and ready for business here to have this event Build Mississippi's having, but we still had to clean out our HVAC systems, the duct systems and all. Some of our air conditioner systems are running and operational. Others we just have off right now, but hey, we'll do it. And I told them, pull out all the stops, get ready. We got to have this event for the young people of Mississippi, the workforce development that this Build Mississippi program is. It's important that it happens every year. And they wanted to come. We wanted to have them. So, 8 days, and we got it up and running again, and here we are. We're ready, excited to have Build Mississippi.
And we should point out, it did happen overnight.
Yeah.
The building was
middle of the night.
It was not occupied.
Yeah. Thank goodness nobody was hurt.
Right.
Nobody was injured. There was a lot of product damage, smoke damage. It could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
It could have been a whole lot worse. But thank the Lord, all of those factors fell into place, and The spring market folks have established a GoFundMe page. I'm going to go ahead and put a plug in for that. Go support them, because a lot of those small businesses are still recovering from this and may or may not have insurance to cover their losses. So we want to help them. And at the end of the day, we are going to support our spring market vendors, but we also had to keep going. And so we got the building back open, and here we are with these great kids from around the state of Mississippi to weld and to build. And I told you earlier, this same group actually built our guard shacks here that we use during the state fair, staging around the campus of the fairgrounds. And they are highly skilled individuals who have a bright future, a well-paying career ahead of them, and they're learning it and they're competing with those skills right here. And by the way, that's something that AI is never going to take away, that type of skill level in a human being. It's this is what we're promoting here, and I'm really proud of these young people.
I wouldn't be surprised to learn that they're probably using AI as part of the construction process.
No doubt about it.
And the thing about it is, these youngsters, they've grown up with these electronic devices in their hands and all around them, so they're adept at that before they start in these trades. But it's so impressive to walk through that floor and see the work they're able to do there.
Yeah. My first job off of the farm was in the building business, building houses and trimming houses, running baseboard, and running a miter saw and skill saw. So I have a real heart for this. That's where I got my start in work, and I've tried to teach our children to do the same thing. It's a skill not everybody can do. You've got to learn it, and there's a bright future for these young people, and there are a lot of jobs that are available right now in Mississippi. Skilled trades, carpentry, welding,
no doubt about
jobs that need to be filled now that
big time
are open and ready for folks to apply. They're having a job fair at the other end of the building, as a matter of fact.
So the agriculture industry, Commissioner, the farmers specifically in the state of Mississippi, they're expressing some difficult times that they're having right now. There a number of factors entering into that equation that's putting a financial hardship on them, to say the least. The president had a series of actions announced a couple of weeks ago there on the White House, on the lawn. It was filled with American farmers that were listening to that. Is that going to help us? Where do we stand?
Well, in January, I was polling some farmers in the Delta, and there was, in January, a sense of optimism because prices were looking up, costs were steady, input costs, fuel and all that. And then, of course, nobody saw the Iran war coming. And when it happens, and we have to win this war, and now that it has happened, but it has resulted in some unexpected variables, increases in fuel, shortages of fertilizer, increased cost of inputs. So really the margin that was looking better is thinner now than anybody would.
And it was already thin.
It was already some bright rays of hope is the Farmer Bridge Assistance Program that the White House, President Trump, pushed out very quickly to help farmers get that next seed in the ground. As we've talked about before, the world of global trade has changed in a remarkable way in a rapid period of time. And so farmers are operating on thin margins all the time. They always have. And they're not in a position to set the prices. They can't say, I'll sell you my beans for this. They are commodity price takers. So we got to get through. We got to get this conflict resolved, get that strait opened up so oil can flow again and prices can come back down. But at the end of the day, farmers are very resilient. They're tough. We've had a lot of bankruptcies in Mississippi, but Arkansas has led the country in terms of bankruptcies. A lot of our farmers have persevered and continue to say we're going to keep on keeping on. So here we are, and like never before, we need to thank our farmers because every year they plant a seed in faith, and they work that crop and they tend it, and they're counting on a harvest and hopefully a profit or break even in some situations. But we need to thank them now like never before. Farmers are hurting. It's a razor's edge. We're talking about row crop farmers. That's not all farmers, but it's a lot of our Delta farmers, most of them that are on that razor's edge, and support them and stand with them. And the president's actions to roll back, like eliminating the DEF sensor, diesel exhaust fluid, what a huge win. I announced that our support of that here the other day. And that's a big win, rolling back endangered species regulations and things.
Yeah, he called some of these environmentalists, he referred to them as terrorists.
That's right.
It's the way they've affected our farms.
What they have done is simply increase cost and regulatory burden, so getting that stuff out of the way so our farmers can keep on farming and be productive, that is helping a lot. But right now, the big crunch point is the input costs are rising because of the global political situation and the war in Iran.
There was legislation this year, Commissioner, that would have reduced the sales tax, if not totally eliminate the sales tax on much of the equipment that farmers and loggers purchase here in the state of Mississippi. That measure actually failed.
It died. I supported that. I support our farmers across the state needed that relief. The elimination of that sales tax on all farm equipment. We did get a little bit of relief. There wasn't a total elimination of the sales tax on lime for agricultural uses. So that was a input cost that was eliminated. And then a reduction of the percentage to 1.5% for gates and fencing equipment that farmers buy, and those type of cost of capital cost of running the farm. So a little bit of tax relief, but not nearly as much as we had hoped for. I do want to thank the legislators that worked hard to do that. There were competing proposals on the House and Senate side. I know Senator Whaley had the bill to eliminate that tax altogether, and there were a lot of folks that were supporting that. But at the end of the day, the budget situation has been discussed. That they say the money's tight. The money's tight, and there were other priorities. So that's where the priorities went. They didn't go to that tax reduction.
Yeah, I think the teacher pay raise and, of course, the request for an increase from Medicaid really put us in a situation where they were limited on what other revenue reductions could be implemented, and this would do that. But I've yet to see next year's revenue projection. I'm still a little concerned about whether or not that's going to be in line to cover this increase in our budget.
Well, it's definitely a new day when I served in the legislature a number of years. And, the Legislative Budget Office has proposals and elbow recommendations, and it seems like in the past, there was some flexibility to do some things in addition to that, but there's not so much of that now these days, and a lot of it is, I think, a factor of being cautious in terms of what our revenues are going to be.
Yeah,
there's that tax phase out. It's not an elimination. Yeah. I still paid state income tax this year. So everybody else did. It was not an elimination. It's a phase out. Our gas taxes were upped. Were increases, and they're increasing again, I think, this year. But looking at the overall revenue situation is going to be an interesting study for the next, decade to see how it plays out. Sales taxes are up right now because prices are up.
Mainly that's a function of inflation.
It's a function of inflation.
But income taxes are down. You've seen the trend on that. So
yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Commissioner. Thanks a lot.
Glad to
great
do
event.
It.
Yeah,
we're glad to host it, and the Trade Mart's back open, ready for business, and come support these young people. If you're looking for a job, the job fair goes to 4 o'clock today.
Sounds good.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Middays from the Element Wealth Studio at the Mississippi Trade Mart. We appreciate Commissioner Andy Gibson joining the program this morning. So just a little follow-up on the situation with America's farmers. They are certainly indicating that in surveys, one just recently conducted by the Farm Journal, indicates that they are really struggling with the current financial environment that they are beset with. The January survey said that they feel they're much worse off, or somewhat worse off, than a year ago. So I think if you think about all the actions that have occurred over the last year that affect farmers, of course you got tariffs. You've got that in play. And you've got some positive stuff, as you heard the commissioner talk about, relaxing some of the environmental regulations that certainly reduces their overall cost of operations. But you've now got the situation of the war, which is driving up the price of diesel and fertilizer, and likely because energy costs are rising, that will likely figure into the cost of other inputs into the farming process as well. So those are all at play, and the president, of course, implored the big equipment makers to lower their prices to help out the farmers. I've said this before, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't really think that government should directly address the private sector like that unless it is related to a private sector arrangement with government, a contract with government, if you will. I certainly understand that, and that would be appropriate. But just in general, to put your finger on an industry like that, I don't find that to be appropriate coming from government. And that happens with Republicans and Democrats. Perhaps the worst Republican offender is Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, who seems to like to parade in CEOs of major corporations and just blame them for everything. He sounds just like deadgum Bernie Sanders and AOC and Liz Warren, that the private company CEOs are just the bane of society. I disagree with that. I understand what the president's saying here is that, hey, look, we need to help our farmers out. I get that, but their stocks, by the way, all tanked. Sold off. I wouldn't say they tanked, but they sold off and fell subsequent to that statement, to that comment. And I'm not sure how much that would actually help. It just depends. The 1.5% sales tax that they pay in the state of Mississippi on agriculture and logging equipment, that was proposed to be eliminated in Senate Bill 2272, and it did not make it, as you heard us talk about. And I think that's largely because lawmakers are concerned about the budget, an increase in spending, and not quite clear on what the revenue picture looks like. You've got, of course, the income tax rate, though it's in very small increments, but the income tax rate will continue to decrease. This year it's a flat 4%, going down to 3.75 next year, and then 3.5 the subsequent, 3.25 down to 3 in 2030, and then after that triggers would reduce it even further. The attainment, the satisfaction of certain mathematically calculated triggers would cause the income tax rate to reduce incrementally even further. And if it reduces by the maximum amount allowed in any given year based on triggers, that would be 0.3%. So 10 years to go from 3% in 2030 to 0. That's what that looks like. But I think the bigger concern is just economic headwinds. Now, I'm hoping that this war is soon going to be ended, as the president is suggesting, at least through his aides' announcement being made. And then if we can get on the other side of this, I do think that the president's actions last year to relax regulations, and of course we can't overlook the impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, more money in consumers' pockets from those various personal provisions, and then also the immediate expensing provision for businesses. It has a stimulative effect on CapEx. Businesses are more willing and likely to invest in new equipment and plants if they can write that expense off in the year of purchase in full. So they're just pulling forward depreciation is essentially what they're doing. Yeah, that has a huge positive impact on the economy. But now with the war, we've got economists predicting 4.2% inflation this year, and they've tempered their predictions for economic growth, GDP growth, from 4% to about 2.5%. Now, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, a short month ago, I shared this on the show, saw an interview with him on the Sunday this week on Wall Street program, and he said he thought 5 to 7% growth was possible. The president said 15%, which would be just mind-boggling. And, man, that would just be fantastic if that should happen. But that's not likely at this point, given the headwinds caused by the war. Now, this is the old concept of short-term pain for long-term gain. Also, Citibank, CEO, JP Morgan Chase, I had it right the first time. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon a couple of days ago came out and said that he supported the president's actions in Iran, but he said, do it right, Mr. President. Rid the world of this menace. I certainly hope that in the president's announcement to end the war, despite the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is not open, I certainly hope that means that we've achieved the objectives as previously announced by the White House, and that's getting rid of their Navy and their Air Force and ensuring that they have no intercontinental ballistic missile capability, not only to launch but to even create more, and of course their nuclear capability, and that would be totally eliminated. And then of course the region would be secure, that our allies would be secure and wouldn't live in constant fear of Iran attacking them. That those were listed as the objectives of the action. I hope in his announcement yesterday that means we are achieving those objectives. That's my hope and prayer at this point, so we can get on the other side of this. And I do think that all these policies will kick in and we're off to the races from an economic perspective. Investors certainly feel pretty rosy about that, and that's why the bulls are in charge of Wall Street the last couple of days based on these investments. On the C Spire text line, talking about validating one's self as a citizen for voting purposes. The SHIELD Act in the state of Mississippi would require that. All these people on the C Spire text line supposedly can't get their marriage certificate to match their birth certificate to match not paying Social Security. It's required to do so. Well, it's a little different situation. Your Social Security continues based on your Social Security number. And I understand that, yeah, they do ask you, they do issue a request, they being Social Security. It's usually handled through your HR department as well, to just update your name in the Social Security records. Not that big a deal. But the contributions continue. And remember that we're talking about someone at a different phase of their life. Typically when you're registering to vote and you've got this issue, if you're already registered, you don't have to re-register. You don't have to authenticate. You don't have to prove citizenship unless there's some change in your situation. You move, that'd be the biggest one. Then you need to do that. Or you get married, and then you just bring your birth certificate and marriage certificate in, and boom, you're good to go. So I think there's a lot of noise being made and a lot of false objections being made about this, in my view. So these people are making it sound like this is just an untenable task, and I don't think that it is. And also, I have been talking to the Secretary of State, Michael Watson, this morning as well about, hey, would electronic versions of a birth certificate, a marriage certificate suffice? He indicates he believes so. He's still looking through that, and I do think that the Secretary of State, in accordance with the law, would have the ability to promulgate the specifics of those rules. He says to me this morning, the law doesn't require a physical copy be presented or it being in person. So I would say it can be electronic, and the clerk would need to ensure its veracity. That makes sense to me, and that's the goal. So all this talk and all these complaints from the left about how difficult this would be, I just think are not grounded in reality and truth. So almost everybody, wouldn't you say, has a mobile device, has an electronic device that connects to the internet. If not, you can go to the library. Those are pretty widespread and dispersed throughout the state. I don't think this is that big a hurdle. Coming right back at the Mississippi Trade Mart.
From theseabrook.com,
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong, inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Whole lot of love, Led Zeppelin bumping us into this segment. Great tune there. Appreciate that, Rhino. Gary in the Berg on the C Spire text line. Lots of space music may be in order today. Rocket Man by Elton John, Telstar theme songs from Star Trek, etc. Can't wait for the moon launch. Yep, that is coming up today. I believe liftoff is scheduled for 6:24. Not sure why they chose 24. It seems kind of random. I'm sure it has to be related to the conditions of a bunch of stuff and the factors that enter into planning a launch time, Eastern time, from Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral, Florida. We got several NASA astronauts headed that way. Reed Wiseman, Christina Koch, Victor Glover, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen. They'll be the first people to launch toward the moon since the Apollo 17 mission in 1972. More than 50 years ago, man. That's incredible to think about. And they are headed that way. 10-day mission. They're not going to land on the moon. They're just going to circle it, orbit it. And this is all towards NASA's goal of establishing a long-term presence on the moon and building a base there. Kind of give new meaning to the famous exclamation by Ralph Crandall of the Honeymooners. To the moon, Alice. I love that. That's awesome. One of these days, Alice. To the moon. Man, oh man. So, on the C Spire text line, you may have already spoken on this already, but it feels like Republicans stand to get smoked in the midterms here if we don't get out of this war and gas prices down. This should be a top priority for the Trump administration. We have definitely spoke on that. I completely believe and acknowledge that people do vote primarily with their pocketbooks, and though I think the case could be made that this is certainly in their best interest and that of their families in the long run, talking about eliminating this persistent threat of over 47 years from these nutcases in Iran, no doubt about it, and that much better times for this country and the world come about after that elimination for our economy as well. So, but in the meantime, people have sort of short-term outlooks, and they're concerned about today. What does it cost to run the household today? And they're paying attention to the price of gas. And it's kind of hard to sell the idea of something that possibly could have happened but didn't. It's a much easier sale when there was some sort of action and there was retaliation for that, such as 9/11. You had the entire world and certainly this country that were behind the subsequent action to that. It really did unite and join people together in this country in defense of it and standing with the country in the face of these threats that were realized, became real events that day on 9/11. So this is different, and it's just kind of a hard sell. I certainly understand that. So messaging is going to be important, but I do think more importantly, a swift end to this situation so that we can start getting back to some degree of normalcy. I personally don't think we're going to see gas prices back to where they were pre-war for a couple of years, if ever. I kind of see oil settling in that $75 a barrel range, not the $60 a barrel range that we had prior to the war. Just feels like that's what's likely to happen. And that's actually digesting and consuming a number of reports from energy experts. Joey the trucker says, I know the oil is on the market and I know that it's high, but they can raise the money on oil and gas and diesel fuel, but won't raise it on cotton and corn and soybeans. I'm not sure who you're talking about, Joey, as far as they and raising the money. But keep this in mind that cotton, soybeans, other agricultural products, they're commodities, they're subject to the same market-based system that oil and gas and petroleum fossil fuels are. So really very similar in that respect. You just heard the commissioner talking about it, that our farmers really don't control that. Oil and gas companies really don't either. The only thing they can control is the supply. They can't really control the demand, and they can't control the price. That is totally subject to market conditions and market action. So we'll see. But I just believe that people want to see that price tick down. I am glad to see markets recovering, because I think people, they get a bit upset when they look in their 401k plan accounts and they see a decline as a result of the markets selling off, actually down into correction territory on the major indexes, all of them. But you know, all the industry analysts, the market analysts, all predict pretty positively still, though, the outlook is. So hopefully that will be the case as we get through this particular situation with the war. Paul and Meridian, we're talking about the elimination of the 1.5% sales tax. Paul and Meridian, and that didn't get through our legislature this year. There were concerns about revenue. He says, what would the revenue look like if the farmers go out of business? I hear you, Paul, but I would encourage you to keep this in mind. The teachers would say, what would society look like if we don't have any teachers because we don't pay them what they think they deserve? So, look, it is a difficult process to consider everything you're talking about and a myriad of other factors. And then you got to also infuse, as I was saying earlier, macroeconomic conditions that certainly affect our revenue picture. I don't know that farmers are at a point, and I very much recognize they're struggling. And like I said earlier, they are dealing with a number of headwinds that are hurting their bottom line, and some not even making money and having to dip into reserves. I'm sensitive to that and don't want to downplay that whatsoever. But I don't know that it's a situation, Paul, that they would say, yeah, I'm going to go out of business if I have to pay 1.5% sales tax. I think it helps. It's got to when they go out and buy this very expensive equipment. No doubt about that. But, you know, the other thing is, if that is a problem, they're likely, just like you would on assets that you own, your car, your appliances, these big purchases and long-term assets, you're likely to hold on to them a little bit longer than you normally would and not refresh and replenish them. And so you know what that means? That means you're buying less, demand is lower, and thus the sellers of that equipment are likely to reduce prices, which probably more than offsets the 1.5% sales tax just because demand's down. So, and then someone said, need farmland property tax addressed. So I assume, this is on the 662 on the text line, I assume what you mean is you'd like to see a decrease in the millage on farmland that is assessed and for which property taxes are paid. And I've seen some suggestions. No, the 1.5% bill did not pass. Somebody just sent that in. That's what we were talking about. And that's what we were talking about with Commissioner Gibson earlier, the Senate Bill 2272. It would have reduced it, but it did not get through. And again, over concerns in the legislature about our current budgetary situation. I did warn 2 years ago, I don't want to play the I told you so game. I fully support elimination of the income tax. I've made that very clear. But I also said that I supported doing it with some reasonable offsets, and the most likely and really the only candidate for that is to implement some reforms in sales taxes, which account for about 38% of total revenue, whereas income taxes, personal income taxes, about 28%. We could have gotten rid of the income tax in short order and transitioned more to a consumption tax. That is consistent with conservative principles of taxation, by the way. First, only raise the minimum amount you need to operate the constitutionally appropriate functions of government. I would say that also applies at the state level as well. But I think that's best handled through a voluntary tax, which is consumption tax, rather than a compulsory income tax. But, man, there's a lot of people that get upset about that because they say it's regressive, that rich people would be provided more preferential treatment there, and lower income people who spend everything they make, they'd get hit the hardest. But I will also point out our sales tax in the state of Mississippi is one of the lowest in the country. Our income tax is too. Our property tax is in the bottom third. But our sales tax is also lower than all the neighboring states, something to keep in mind. And we got some other texts coming in, and I'll get to those later. Coming up next, though, it's Blaze King, Director of Strategy and Alignment for Accelerate Mississippi. Stay with us.
I just hope and pray that I'll find a way to say, can I dance with you?
Polyumpa, Mississippi.
Stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio, today located at the Mississippi Trade Mart. We're here for the Build Mississippi Skills USA Mississippi State Competition. We welcome now Blake King, Director of Strategy and Alignment for Accelerate Mississippi. Hey, Blake, thanks for coming on.
Hey, glad to be here.
So tell the folks about Accelerate Mississippi, exactly what you guys do.
So Accelerate Mississippi, we're looking to take the opportunities across the state with business and industry, take the workforce that's there, spend time and investment developing that workforce to meet the needs of business and industry. So hopefully the individuals in the state have an opportunity for some upward career mobility and gainful employment and really economic mobility as well.
So what are the ages of those who would participate in this program?
So for us, we're looking 16 and above.
Okay.
And you're looking at your labor market. So spending time upskilling individuals that are already in the workforce, those could range anywhere. But also getting younger and younger as those individuals look for a career that may not involve a 4-year degree, maybe something workforce training, maybe short-term training as well.
And do you work with industry to determine and to shape that content?
So absolutely, industry has to drive it.
Yeah.
Right. Industry's got to be the one driving, saying this is what we need. Because if we're just giving individuals credentials and education that doesn't match what they need, we're just spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
Throwing mud all over the place and not getting much accomplished. So really want business and industry to drive what we're doing so that the individuals can go straight into employment and move up quicker.
Yeah. This seems like this is more needed now than ever, that it's just so hard for traditional linear curriculum in school to keep up, honestly. It's maybe you can get a lot of the basics, a lot of the framework, and the foundation, but it's such a specialized world out there, and these employers need these specialized skills.
It is a specialized skills. It's and I think the word skills is really important because it's got to be the way that the academic side ties to the skills and the way that those individuals can apply those skills. And one of the things that we're hearing over and over and over again is just the ability to have critical thinking.
Yeah.
Right. It's not what's in the book. It's can you take the knowledge and apply it to something else and think critically about how that's going to meet a solution.
Yeah.
And really get those individuals in a place where they're valuable to the employer, because the employer doesn't have to spend time continuing to oversee them, because they're able to think critically, get the job done, and apply the skills that they have to the current work that they're doing.
Yeah, that's totally true. So where do you see this going from here?
I don't see it slowing down. I think if you look at the stuff that's happening on the federal government space, on the federal side, and the things that they're putting in place to really drive some of these trades and skills training, as well as just the economic development that's happening across the state of Mississippi.
Yep.
I don't think it's slowing down anytime, and I think we're going to continue to see the need for skills-based individuals that get into the workforce. And again, I think you combine the academic side with the skills, and it just gives the individuals opportunity to progress rapidly and really move up. And skills aren't what they used to be. The trades aren't what they used to be. It's not always this dirty job that's just turning wrenches. There's a lot of knowledge that goes into it, and a lot of opportunity to make a lot of money doing that too.
Blaze King, Director of Strategy and Alignment, Accelerate Mississippi, our guest. So what do you think about this event, the Skills USA event?
It's incredible. It's incredible. Been able to see this for a couple of years and continue to be impressed with the students and their ability to perform. And to be honest with you, I think it's what education should be, right? They're able to take that academic side that they get in the classroom, and then they're able to come and show off their skills, really put that academic book knowledge to the test, and then show those skills. They're out there, they're doing a job.
Yeah,
they're showing employers.
It's amazing.
Showing employers what they can do, and really putting it to the test, where it's not just this head knowledge and this theory, it's actual application.
And receiving job offers often on the floor. That's pretty cool.
Is that not what it's about?
It's totally what it's about.
That's it.
It's 100% what it's about. That is the value of obtaining all these skills and an education in general. It's also, I like to say, it's about learning how to learn, because it constantly evolves. It's not fixed. It's not permanent. And our world moves at such breakneck pace these days. You got to be just accustomed to and willing to accept. The learning's just starting when you're through with your traditional education.
That's right. The diploma is when you start learning.
That's
right?
Exactly right. Well, it's great. It's great to see all these youngsters, and they're so fired up and so excited. And I really feel like, Blaze, that we're in many ways ahead of the other states in this realm. Your thoughts about that? We got about a minute left.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think that's appreciate what our governor, what our legislature have done, and the State Workforce Investment Board, and the way that they've put things in motion to allow for this to just take off. And
I agree.
Can't go but without saying the support of partners like Build Mississippi and the business and industry that shows up consistently to.
They're paying attention.
Employers
are paying attention.
Absolutely.
They see this. Yeah. Blaze, appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you. Been great.
Blaze King, Director of Strategy and Alignment, Accelerate Mississippi, has been our guest. It's time for a break at the top of the hour. That means Fox News, SuperTalk News. We got more talk on the other side. Lee Nation's President and CEO of Associated Builders and Contractors at 12:50.
Your home. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Hour 3 of MidDays. The afternoon portion of the program is now live from the Element Wealth Studio, located inside the fantastic Mississippi Trade Mart on this Hump Day. So we were talking earlier about the SHIELD Act in the state of Mississippi. That is a measure that I expect the governor to sign that would just simply require some checking before we put you on the voter rolls to ensure that you are a citizen. And then there's another key provision of that legislation, and that is that the Secretary of State would be required by law to query the SAVE database. That's the federal Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements. I believe I got the acronym right there, Rhino. And it's a database that's been around a while, and it's used, and its purpose is just to determine that you're a citizen in order to ensure that you're eligible to receive certain federal benefits, participate in these benefit programs, Medicaid, the ACA subsidies, TANF, the temporary assistance for needy families, that, of course, is very much connected, deeply connected to the state of Mississippi. You know about that. And then there's the SNAP program, this supplemental nutrition program. That's also known as food stamps. Those are the main ones. And illegals have never been eligible for those programs. However, certain legal immigrants have been for decades, until the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was passed last year, and that eliminated eligibility for a broad stroke of legal immigrants, leaving only those that are refugees from Cuba and Haiti. And Rhino, you were kind enough to look that up for us back when we were discussing this last year. Why in the world did they do a special exception for those two groups specifically of immigrants? And it goes back to laws passed back in the 80s. And you couldn't just eliminate that through the reconciliation process. And that's back when we had the boat people coming into the country. The federal government made those people eligible for certain federal benefits. So the bottom line is that until the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was passed last July 4th, a laundry list of legal immigrants were eligible for these benefits. Illegal immigrants have never been. However, suffice it to say that mistakes get made. And that's even in checking the saved database, because there are reports of it containing errors, that it not being just pristine and perfect. And you can understand that when you consider the mountain of data and how fluid that data is and how difficult it is to obtain that data. Not an excuse, just pointing out that it's certainly understandable and reasonable to expect a certain amount of errors. Now, the key is let's minimize those. And there are all kinds of clutching of pearls and gnashing of teeth that, oh my gosh, even though I'm a legal citizen, we're going to do this query once a year, run this process the Secretary of State will do, where the data contained in the state's election management system, SIMS as it is called, will be compared and contrasted to the data stored in the federal SAVE database. And if it comes back and says, hey, looks like this person that is enrolled in the registered voter database in Mississippi may not be a legal citizen. You got to, and so our law says you got to go tell them, Secretary of State, and they've got, I don't remember the number of days, the time period they have to go to their circuit clerk's office with the necessary proof. And in that case, that cleans it up. You don't get removed from the rolls. You just get placed in a pending verification status, if you will, and you clean that up and attest to that with those documents. And the status gets updated to show that you're now a legal voter, and you're good to go. That's it. But man, they're going crazy about the possibility of that process. And yes, we have prescribed an approach to handling those exceptions, meaning we checked you in the database, shows that you may not be a legal citizen, and that maybe that's not true because that database has errors, contains errors, and so that information is erroneous. You simply come in and clear it up. I'm betting that the number of those exceptions will be less than 5. I'm also betting that the number of legals registered to vote in the state of Mississippi is less than 5. But and that's what they get all mad about. But I think it's more a function of confidence in the integrity of our systems. These are fairly simple, straightforward safeguards to ensure that I think are more than worth of what little bit of imposition exists in this measure. It will be imposed. And in the case of a brand new voter, the situation to me that maybe requires the most amount of effort, if you could even call it that, is a person who is registering for the first time and is married. And so they have a birth certificate that has a different name on it, and that doesn't satisfy the attestation requirement and the verification requirement. So they just bring in their marriage certificate. But I would also say they're probably, generally speaking, most of these people aren't so old that they've just misplaced and lost track of their marriage certificate. If you have, I think the last I checked, $15, maybe it's $17. Pretty easy to obtain, delivered electronically. You can print it out, you could display it, whatever the case may be, and you're good to go. I just feel like the complaints about this, the pushback, are gross overkill. Kevin from Tupelo says it's just way too complicated for such simple minds on the left. Maybe so, Kevin. But reading this article in the Clarion Ledger from this person who says my birth certificate uses my maiden name, my passport uses my married name, just like my driver's license. But Rhino, help me out here. If your passport has your married name on it and you seek to register with your current name, which is your married name, and you've got a passport that has that on it, aren't you good to go? What am I missing here?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that passport would prove your citizenship.
And looking at the law, the bill at this point, the measure, that is a document that's considered satisfactory because, as I recall, you got to bring your birth certificate, do you not, to obtain a passport, to prove you're a citizen, to get a passport. So you've done that, and I don't really see that this process is any different. And then this person says, well, I often go by my middle name. Yeah, but I mean, like, you're filling out your name differently on official documents and when you register for various services and programs and actions. That doesn't make any sense. Under a system that requires strict documentary proof of citizenship, these differences matter. I just don't think that's a big a deal. This unnecessary change would mean women like me may be required to produce additional documents like a marriage certificate or a legal name change paperwork just to prove they are eligible. So, the question is, well, what do you guys want? No checks? Don't answer that, because that's what they want. So the alternative is, well, either we have something that truly does verify citizenship, or we just don't care, which is what I think the latter is what they want. We don't care. All comers just show up, sign up to vote. She says, I'm far from alone. Hundreds of thousands of women across Mississippi have changed their names after marriage, but are they all going to register to vote? Isn't she missing that point here, Rhino? If you're already on the voter rolls and you're married, you're good to go. Now, the only problem would be if we run it against the SAVE database and it says you potentially aren't a legal citizen, well, then you may have to come in and show those documents. But if you're already on the voter rolls, I don't understand. That doesn't equate to hundreds of thousands of people. And if these women have obviously changed their name and they haven't registered to vote ever in their life, I'm just betting that they're not too far removed from having been married, and they probably could put their hands on their marriage certificate. I mean, what's next? We just eliminate the requirement to obtain a marriage certificate to get married? I mean, I don't know. You could just keep on going down the rabbit hole on this. So this says, so even if I am already registered to vote, I could be required to prove my citizenship because of possible errors in federal databases. I acknowledge that. I agree with this person. Does that amount to hundreds of thousands? You paint me skeptical at a minimum on that. No, I don't think. I think it's more like 5, maybe. Oh my gosh, this is just overblown fear-mongering. Coming right back in the Element Well studio at the Mississippi Trade Mart for the annual Build Mississippi Skills USA competition.
Russell Williamson here.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go. This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Middays from the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Build Mississippi Skills USA Mississippi competition. All these youngsters showing off their skills in the various trades, and man, they're impressive, no doubt about that. A lot of folks always ask the question, this just came up on the C Spire text line, why does it seem like that retail prices at the pump are always quick to respond upward when there is a spike in the price of oil as it is traded in the oil commodities markets. But when that price at the market of a barrel of oil starts to trend downward, it seems like the prices at the pump lag in their response to go lower. And that, generally speaking, is because they at the retail level, and even to some extent at the distribution level, they're trying to maximize their profit while they can, knowing that they're going to be forced by the market, if you will, not government, to reduce their prices to align with the decline in the price of a barrel as it is traded on the open market. And so just keep in mind that there's a lot of stuff we all buy, guys. This happens all the time. We don't even know about it. There's a lot of stuff like that. The reason we know about this is because it's published every day. It's a publicly, globally traded commodity, and the price of it is published every day. You think about when you go to Pickett, the Walmart, you'd have to do some digging to find out what their landed cost was of anything you bought. And that's a complicated calculation because there's a lot of transportation and movement and other overhead associated with that actually can be, from an accounting principles perspective, included in the cost of a product before it is marked up at the retail level and then sold. And the difference between those two figures, the retail price and the landed cost, would be gross profit, not net profit, gross profit. And so the oil and gas industry is a bit different just because the whole world knows what the price is. We all know, and so when we go by, and we all know as it fluctuates. It's published daily, continuously, by the way. So we all know that, but it's unique in that respect. Also on the C Spire text line, it's not just the farmers that are getting crushed by all these various factors we talked about earlier. Loggers are getting killed right now. I'm sure I've heard the same thing, and I certainly didn't mean to omit them in my discussion there, and not show my concern, I should say, because I know loggers are struggling just as traditional, particularly row crop farmers are right now. I think with the beef shortage, the cattle shortage that's going on, we're seeing elevated cattle prices. They're doing pretty well for a change, but as you know, Rhino, they've had many years of really difficult financial times, and they're finally getting to make a little money. And as I've said so many times, you guys are just too dang good. You're too productive, and that floods the market with more supply than we can consume. That drives the price down because it is, like we said, globally traded commodities. And well, certainly in the case of farm commodities, those are domestically traded on those markets. There is some incorporation of the cost in the trade ranges of those products produced abroad, but in general, that's driven by domestic price and domestic costs and domestic trading. On the C Spire text line, Gerard, it just takes X amount of dollars to run the government. I hear you. And I know I was just talking earlier about concerns about revenue to cover all of our spending here in the state government. The spending has increased over last year by $260 million, most of that driven by Medicaid and then education. Those are the two big programs and spending categories that are driving up spending at the state level. I'm just concerned about having sufficient revenue to cover that and how that compares to our general fund state spending. Concerned about that and curious to know whether or not we're in a deficit situation, in which case we'd have to borrow money. We don't want that. But we're in a surplus situation, or are we pretty close to break even? Something else that the legislature did not act on, you guys should know, is some reforms to ensure that our food stamps program, our SNAP program, that the error rate in that program is reduced, because under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, based on the state's error rate, and that there are processes used to calculate that, the error rate will be used going forward and that kicked in, by the way, for fiscal year 26. That was October 1. The fiscal year ends at the federal level September 30th. October 1 kicked off the new fiscal year, so we're already some 6 months into it. And the bottom line is that our error rate exceeds the highest level in the program for purposes of calculating what amount of benefits paid by a state the state would have to cover, and that is 15%. So based on our 10.6% error rate, that's the last couple of years, that's where it's come in at. They're talking about just errors in the administration of our SNAP program. If that continues at current trend, we're going to be on the hook for about $128 million to the federal government come 2028. That would be the first year in which states would have to actually pick up the tab and cover a percentage of total benefits as a result of the experienced error rate. So again, there are three brackets of that. You get below 6%, you don't owe the federal government anything. You get above 10%, as we are, then you owe the federal government 15% total benefits. So we're looking at a bunch of money coming out of state general funds if we don't get that addressed and cleaned up. Senator Daniel Sparks had a measure this year that would have changed and reformed the way that we determine eligibility for the SNAP program, but that did not make its way through both houses, and thus it died this year. But guys, we got to do something, government there, because the federal government's going to send us a bill. They're already sending us a dunning notice, letting us know that, hey, you know what? You're 6 months into this thing. Your error rate is ringing the cash register. You're accumulating penalties, if you will, that we're going to have to pay in 2028. Fred from Kosciuszko says, I guess I may look at it differently, but I would do whatever is necessary to be able to vote to have real election integrity. It is hard to imagine that people would not go to the trouble of producing a document to remain eligible to vote. I would go look for my first grade report card if that's what it took to be able to vote. Voting is the ultimate privilege of living in the USA. Agree. It's the privilege of living here, but it's the right as granted to it, Fred, is granted to us by our Constitution. And that's when the left, as you've seen, Rhino, that's when they point to that as their justification for opposing this legislation. Well, you know, that's a right enshrined in our Constitution. Totally true, but note that the right explicitly states that it applies to citizens. So it stands to reason that government would be within its purview to impose policy and rules and procedure to ensure that a person is a citizen. Otherwise, we'd be conferring that right to non-citizens. I just don't get the pushback on that. It's weak at best. Rusty says our beef prices are up, but so are all of our inputs like feed and fertilizer. I hear you, Rusty, and certainly wasn't trying to suggest that you guys are just producing a massive amount of income here. I'm with you, and I hear you, and I agree. I'm just pointing out that you're in a little better shape than some of the other commodities is really the only point I was trying to make. Overall, though, I admit, I agree. There are concerns for the entire agricultural industry in the country, and certainly here in the state of Mississippi. And again, there are a number of issues that have made farming difficult industry, a difficult business, and certainly challenging the viability in some cases of some of these farms. So a myriad of issues to contend with, and headwinds as well, just looking out at the possibility of inflation and elevated fertilizer as well as elevated fuel prices in our future. I know it's going to cause problems, no doubt, sensitive to that. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio that it's at the Mississippi Trade Mart. Stay with us.
From theseabrook.com.
Mississippi, Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, the Element Wealth studio down at the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Build Mississippi Skills USA Mississippi State competition. Final half hour of today's program. Lee Nations, President and CEO of Associated Builders and Contractors, on with us in the next segment. This is Randy from West Union area of Union County. My daughter has heard something about a bill that passed in the House and headed to the Senate about updating the child custody laws. She is already having trouble with other parents keeping him straight about what was settled in court. And the main thing is the other parent getting more time, which could be an issue through the bill. I haven't dug into that a great deal, but and not sure what you know about it, Rhino, but in general, it's a 50-50 joint custody bill is what is being debated.
Yeah, from what I understand, all it does is change the presumption of custody at the onset of a custody battle or hearing or whatever you want to call it, from somebody's getting 100% and we got to argue this down if you want to share custody, to the presumption is 50-50 shared custody, and then the argument begins from there. Does the parent A not need to be with these children because of reasons X, Y, and Z? Or does parent B need more time with the children because of reasons X, Y, and like that? It's just changing the presumption going in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I interpreted it as well. So it's a little misleading in that I think many people believe it's just automatic, permanent 50-50, no matter what the circumstances are. It starts at that point, as you indicate, and then the court hears the case, and they go from there and then assign final custody rights, a portion between the parents, the guardians. So I don't know what the status of the legislation is. The person on our text line here, Randy, said passed the House.
Yeah, the House passed the conference report yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to say it would be in the conference report now, and so the House passed it, transmitted it to the Senate. We're waiting for them to take action, if any, on the conference report. Well, I guess they have to, right, Ronald? They have to take action on the conference report, or can they just let that die on the calendar? Not sure. I thought once it went to conference and came out of, and a conference report was produced, which is what the purpose of conference is, or they can kill it in conference.
No, yeah, it can die after conference too.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's right. So it's all part of the dead saying, as is commonly used around the Capitol. So also the Supreme Court is hearing the argument on birthright citizenship in the United States. Indications from media are that the court is leaning towards allowing the birthright citizenship law in this country to stand and not overturning that. The president wants to overturn it, and it's my understanding that he was on hand in person in the court today. Is that not the first time a president has ever actually shown up in person in the Supreme Court?
For oral arguments, I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah, I knew there was something that was a first associated with it. Okay, so for oral arguments, but the expectation at this point, I think, would lean towards the court's finding that birthright citizenship is perfectly legal and consistent with our Constitution. I don't think the president's going to be very happy about that. He's been lambasting the justices on his Truth Social platform, as he is known for doing, and indicating his concern. So, but they're hearing those oral arguments today that basically challenge his executive order is how we got here, which seeks to bar children of undocumented immigrants or temporary residents from automatically being Americans. So we'll see what that happens. It's thought that lawful Asian immigrants would be disproportionately affected if birthright citizenship were to end. Interesting. 6.4 million U.S.-born children without legal status by 2050, according to a new study. That's 6.4 million new U.S.-born citizens.
Would Asians be most impacted because it's a cottage industry in China for pregnant women to fly to the U.S. so their baby gets U.S. citizenry?
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, exactly, yes. And we can't overlook, though, that the cartels to our south engage in shakedown as well, right, to get someone smuggled in to have a child that is a citizen, and then, of course, that opens them up to benefits as a citizen. So
that's
usually
by means of a coyote and literal human trafficking.
Agree.
The cottage industry out of China is essentially you go to a travel agency and say, hey, I want my kid to be a U.S. citizen. All right, cool. Sign here. Here's your ticket. This is your schedule. You're going to the U.S. You'll be there for 3 weeks. You'll have the baby in the second week, and you'll fly back to China. And that's the only time you ever spent in America. But guess what? Your baby has citizenship.
Yeah, and I've always thought that there's probably some involvement of the CCP in government in that as well.
Oh, yeah.
They just, that. They got their fingers in everything. On the C Spire text line, talking about the SHIELD Act, the Mississippi bill that would certainly strengthen the requirements on the part of circuit clerks, elections commissioners, and the Secretary of State to ensure that our voter rolls only contain American citizens. One illegal vote discredits my vote. Therefore, one illegal vote is too many. I hear you. But again, the clutching of pearls and gnashing of teeth from the left in this country, not just in this state, but across the country. And across the country, of course, concerning the SAVE Act at the federal level. In the state of Mississippi, the ACLU and the Mississippi Today and Democrats in general are pushing back on it. I just don't get it. Like, is there something unique to Democrats that makes this process more onerous for them than they're Republican voters? It's just seems misguided at best. I work with and know several illegals, this on the 662, that paid $1,500 for a Social Security number when they came across the border. They get $540 a month, food stamps using the bought Social Security number. Won't they be able to vote too? They can't even speak English but have an American name because Social Security number they bought. Yeah, I mean, they still, certainly it depends on the state, but in this state, the current law, just so you guys will know, we've talked to Secretary of State Watson about this many times. You simply check a box that says I'm a citizen, and there's no further verification on that I'm aware of, and there's no requirement on the part there. So that's really it. But I don't know how many are signing up to vote. I'm really not sure. What this would do that I think's more important, it would scrub our current rolls against the SAVE database to ensure that we don't have like years of accumulated ineligible, illegal citizen, not legal citizens, I should say, signed up to vote. That's probably more important than anything. I just don't know how many of them are showing up illegals. I think they want to stay hidden, honestly. And that's different than getting a tax ID or a Social Security number. What you're probably talking about here on the 662 is a Social Security number that's been illegally obtained through various security electronic breaches. The penetration.
Technically, paying for a Social Security number is illegal. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. Yes, I agree. I'm just making the point that those numbers are out there floating around because of the numerous breaches to the various systems in this country, electronic systems that hold Social Security numbers. Equifax, the big one that happened many years ago, hell, that basically released into the hands of illegitimate people across the ocean every Social Security number in America at the time, because almost every adult, at least, has an Equifax account, Equifax record on them. So, yeah, that exactly. Then there's a cottage industry associated with that. Same thing for filing tax returns with bogus Social Security, not bogus, real Social Security numbers, but not yours, and filing that in such a way that it results in the federal government, the IRS, owing money through child tax credits and the like. And it's thought to be about an $8 billion a year problem, just forging tax returns by using legitimate Social Security numbers that don't belong to the person who filed the tax return, because those Social Security numbers are floating out there in cyberspace through the years of breaches of the systems that hold them. Really is incredible. Man, oh man. Well, we're stepping aside for a break. When we come back, it's Lee Nations, President and CEO of Associated Builders and Contractors.
If you're about
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians, Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Mississippi Trade Mart. We're here for the Build a Mississippi Skills USA Mississippi State competition. We're pleased to, well, I think he just turned out. We're pleased to welcome now Kel Smith. He is with the Mississippi Community College Board. Kel, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, Gerard, thank you for having me today.
Yeah, so this event, it's just really spectacular when you peruse the trade show floor there and all those youngsters building stuff. It's impressive every year.
It no doubt is, and it's a great example of the tremendous work that's done at the K-12 and community college level with these programs that are so vital to our state and our state's economy. You know, you have these students who have these just wonderful skills that they're able to come and show off. And I was talking to someone a second ago who was going through the career fair side of it, and folks were walking out of here today and yesterday with job opportunities. And that's what it's all about, getting students through the pipeline and into these high-demand careers.
Isn't that great?
It's wonderful. That's what we're all in the business
of. They're landing jobs on the floor. I mean, like, one less thing to have to worry about, right?
I wish I was that smart many years ago to have done something like that.
And you know that you can tell that they have fun with it too, huh?
No doubt they do. No doubt they do. And this goes back many years. This is not something we've come up with, here recently. And so Skills USA is just one of those great organizations that we have a long-standing relationship with, both at the K-12 and the community college level.
No doubt about it. This is really also a benefit to employers as well. And I feel like, Kel, and you serving on the board there, or ED for the board, I feel like that there was a time when there was a gap between the academic and the education community and the private sector.
That's
and
right.
like the goal is to educate kids and students so that they are ready to go to work and fill the needs of the private sector, be gainfully employed. That's not the case anymore. And for several years, we've seen much more collaboration between the private sector and education.
That's exactly right. Whether it's something like this, where we're bringing industry and students together at our shop, whether it's bringing business and industry in to help write curriculum for our career tech programs, I think that you're right, that our partnerships with business and industry are strengthening, because we need to make sure that we are providing the workforce for our employers. And so in order for that to happen, we have to have these relationships.
Well, I think employers are taking note, and especially when you consider really the explosion of new economic development projects announced in our state over the last 3 or 4 years, literally tens of billions of dollars pouring into the state. They're noticing something we're doing here in Mississippi.
That's exactly right. And look, let me take a second to talk about the great things that Courtney Taylor and her team are doing in Accelerate Mississippi.
Totally, yes.
The last 4 or 5 years, they've hit the ground running, and we have that entity that provides that North Star for all things workforce training, because that's what folks are looking for now. And how many employees can you produce for us?
And especially they're interested in shortening that time between them making the investment and them getting in production, whatever the business or industry is, that they can generate revenue. The shortening the time to spend to the time to actually produce income.
And whether it's your old line of work with IT background, or what we got going on here with HVAC and cabinetry making and all those things.
Yeah.
So
incredible that's going on. So, well, give us a little status on the community colleges and what's going on there.
We're doing well. We're finishing up the semester right now. You'll see graduations happening in the next few weeks. We're continuing to educate and train tens of thousands of students each year. There are certainly challenges out there, but we're prepared to meet those head on, and just look forward to continuing working with everyone across the state to help better us.
It certainly is another tremendous asset for the state of Mississippi, talking about just the community colleges in general. I'm not sure there's a better system in the country. Honestly.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, it is documented as the oldest community college system in the nation. It's something that we can be proud of. We can take somebody, regardless of their academic background, and put them in a position to be successful, whether it's a high school dropout looking to earn an HSE or somebody who's looking to earn a career tech or workforce credential.
Yeah, and again, many of the curricula actually train them to enter the workforce immediately upon graduation.
That's exactly right, and they are not encumbering as much debt as some other folks.
Yeah, and some, of course, may choose to attend a four-year school and continue their education and obtain a four-year degree, but the point is you got options.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And so you're well positioned for whatever the case may be. Are you seeing, Kel, that with all the gains we're making in K through 12 education, that students are being admitted into the community college community, maybe with just a better background to take on college at that level?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly seeing the effects of the third grade reading gate.
Yeah.
We'll see the better prepared students, hopefully, as that continues to progress, and they population matriculation in the post-secondary world.
Yeah, well, that's good, because there was a time before we go here that a lot of times they'd get to the community college, you'd have to remediate some stuff a little bit before you could really send them on their way. Right?
We still have to do that occasionally, but that won't ever change probably.
Yeah, sure. Kel Smith, Executive Director of the Mississippi Board of Community Colleges. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks. Yep. Folks, that's a wrap here today for the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Build Mississippi Skills USA state competition back in the Element Well studio again at SuperTalk headquarters tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
You're listening to a SuperTalk Mississippi media production.